Like, we founded this company on a belief system that creativity without opportunity is what leads to criminality. If I would have known I could sell ideas, I would have never sold drugs, right? Like, I didn't realize that this was even an industry or an opportunity, right? So yes, by us providing access to this particular world, right, this particular industry, folks don't want to go back to jail or go back to the lifestyle that they led before, because this is a way for them to tell their story.
This is the Snarketing Podcast, for marketers, by marketers, talking to marketers with just a touch of snark. Now, here are your hosts, Valerie Vespa and Matt Worst.
Hello and welcome to the Snarketing Podcast. We are honored that you've decided to be one of our several listeners this time around. I am Matt Worst.
And I am Valerie Vespa.
I mean, you laugh like you're surprised. I mean, it's not like we are getting millions of followers. We're definitely in the hundreds to thousands, depending on the episode.
I've been doing a guided meditation that says to be kind to oneself and like stop with the self-deprecation.
You know, what's interesting about our podcast, this is obviously the first podcast that either of us has ever done, but
Correct.
people are like, oh, how many listeners do you have? Or, you know, what's the streaming data? And
Yeah.
I have no idea. Like, I have no frame of reference. I have no context or benchmarks. Do you?
I don't. And I think, you know, it's I what I do value is that people reach out to us and email us asking for people to be on our show. So I
Yeah,
know that
we're
there
getting
is demand.
pitched. I know.
I
This is
know.
amazing. I'm
I know
almost
there's
like
something so
embarrassed. I'm
exciting.
like, hey, is there a formal process for pitching a guest? I was like, you just did. You just did it. That was it.
It's good. It feels good to be wanted, having been in sales for as long as I have.
Also, we've never said no to anybody, but that may change. We may get more selective. So if you're wondering who the heck are these people, now you know why. We have trouble saying no.
Well, in not saying no, I think we've learned some things about ourselves and where we are. You're always very consistently good. I think that I'm better when I have guests on that I know.
Well, I mean, I think that's probably true regardless for anybody, right? You're more comfortable with friends or people that you know. But what
Yeah.
makes us professionals is that we can adapt to any situation.
I think we do. I think we do.
I think we do. So today's guests, I didn't actually have a ton of history or context with. I only met them in Cannes this year, but I met them through you. So that's why I think this episode is going to be great, because these are like your buddies.
These are my buddies. And I met them probably like 2 years ago at this point, and we would do the conference circuits together, and you know, Vincent became a very close friend of mine, and it's just exciting to watch him try and grow his business. And so I thought it would be great to get his perspective on being an entrepreneur and all of the exciting little projects he's working on.
Well, I did not know that you were cheating on me on the conference circuit with somebody else. But what I realize now in retrospect, the origin of this podcast was initially supposed to be recording these at conferences. And the name of this podcast was supposed to be, do you remember what it was?
I don't.
It was going to be Pros and Cons, meaning we are the pros at conferencing, yet Vinny and Paulie, who we're about to talk to, are actually pros and cons, or ex-cons. And that's the origin of their name, which they'll get into and tell us all about, which I know is going to be fascinating. But it's kind of a converging, kismety moment.
I love how you create segues to bringing guests on or changing to a different question or something. I'm impressed by that.
Well, now that you've put that spotlight on me, I feel pressure to just go and let Al introduce our guests.
Yes, let's welcome our guests. Vincent Bragg is the founder and CEO of ConCreates, an award-winning creative agency, and Paulie Polacke leads business development with the company. Their model, process, and approach are unlike anything you've heard of before, and it would have been criminal of us to not have them on the show. So let's go. The mic is yours, Matt.
So this is the Snarketing Podcast, and you have tuned in to what I have no doubt will be the best episode yet, because for the first time ever, we have two guests, not one. So double the pleasure, well, maybe double the trouble. I don't know. Paulie, Vincent, welcome to the Snarketing Podcast. I am excited you guys are here, and you're here courtesy of Valerie. So Valerie, I'm going to let you kick things off because I met these guys through you, and I am so glad that I did.
I am so happy to have the two of you on. Thank you for making the time. I love you both very much. Vincent, I want to start with you. We talked about this for a while, and it's finally come to fruition that you're here as a guest on this podcast. So the idea of ConCreates is something that you came up with when you were in federal prison.
Sure.
I know that you share your origin story, and I feel like you need to share it with the world. So can you please talk about how this was born and how you made this a reality for yourself?
Absolutely. So, first off, thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here as well. My name is Vincent Bragg. I am the co-founder and CEO of ConCreates. So let's go back. All right. So once upon a time, in a lifetime not long ago, I happened to build a drug empire a little north of 300 million. And subsequently, my business partner, who isn't here, also went to federal prison for successfully robbing 27 banks, allegedly, where the United States of America frowned upon said behavior and put us on what we like to call an adult timeout. So we go to federal prison where we got super smart, right? We studied law, corporate law, real estate law, we read over 500 books, wrote some books, happened to do cancer walks and things like that. Well, one day, my co-founder happened to be watching, television in the TV room and noticed that the same story was on all of these different televisions, like 4 TVs in there. He sees that star running back Joseph Randall had been accused of stealing underwear, and we kind of looked into that, right? Like, that doesn't make sense. What is a second round draft pick doing shoplifting, stealing underwear? So dig into the story a little bit. He has his son. They're shopping. He's going through the terrible twos. He takes his son outside to console him and didn't pay for a couple items. One happened to be underwear. Well, the magic part about that is we happen to be in prison with the founder of this underwear company called MeUndies, and had decided, you know what, like, let's pair these guys up. Let MeUndies pay his fine to the NFL, give away some underwear at some charity events, and it went what the kids call viral. And so that kind of sparked this, like, wait a minute, what just happened, right? So us kind of thinking that was a fluke, we also happened to be in prison with Marshawn Lynch's cousin. Marshawn Lynch kept getting fined by the NFL for grabbing at his crotch every time he scored a touchdown. So we thought, hey, let's pair him up with MeUndies, give him an endorsement. The magic moment for that was he happened to go to the Super Bowl that year and won. And so when they asked him why he didn't grab at his crotch, he said, I wear the most comfortable underwear in the world, MeUndies, and it went to the moon. So MeUndies turns around, sells 10 million pairs of underwear, and I have what we call the Moses moment, where I spent a couple days really just thinking about the magic that just happened and what we could do to kind of like capitalize on it. And the idea that was born from that was starting an advertising agency called ConCreates that is solely powered by incarcerated as well as formerly incarcerated men and women across these beautiful United States.
Wow. I mean, that is not the typical origin story. When you talk about pairing with underwear, which is ironic in and of itself, to inspire this idea, I did not realize that the founder of MeUndies was also in prison. So in some ways, there's like a fortuitous spin on this, where out of something that was obviously challenging, traumatic, and a negative experience in your life turns around into something great. So I will then, just in the spirit of equal time, I will let Paulie, you introduce yourself. What's your role with the company? What are your responsibilities, and how did you get paired up with Vince here?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, again, like we said earlier, thank you guys for having us on the podcast. My name is Paulie, or as Vince likes to say, Uncle Paulie. I answer to cousin Paulie, any kind of Paulie, as long as it's Paulie.
This
Has to be a relative name, right? It's whether where did that come
Yeah.
from? Is it like Rocky or is it Sopranos?
No,
I don't know. What is it from?
no, it's from birth.
Oh, no, not
Just,
Paulie. The uncle or the cousin. I feel like that's like a.
no. I mean, with Vince has his own reasons for that. I don't even.
He answers to daddy when I call him that.
What happens
I
in
mean, I
can
would.
stays in
I would.
can, Valerie. Okay.
Oh God, please. Um, so, I mean, Vince would have to answer why he came up with Uncle Paulie. I don't know. It was like almost instantaneous from our first meeting. The Uncle Paulie, and it stuck and it kind of grew. I don't even know. It's just morphed into something crazy now. So like to the point where it's almost a cartoon character.
So, and you guys are working together. What is your role with the company?
So my role, I do business development for ConCreates. It actually is kind of a more recent decision. I mean, I've been rolling with Vince to events and things for the last like year and a half, more or less just because like we had a good vibe and we were good friends and like we just had a good time. And then as events kind of tack one after the other, Vince was like, "Bro, you can do this." Like he's like, "I actually need you." So here I am.
So, Vincent, tell me a little bit about your business. And, you told us your origin story. What are you really focused on today and for tomorrow for your business? And also I'd be interested to kind of hear about what are your like current challenges or what, recent challenges you've had sort of getting this agency off the ground.
Sure. So I think it's kind of interesting. So when I first got out of prison, I came home March 1st of 2016. I joined this prisoner entrepreneurship program called Defy Ventures, based out of New York, where I kind of, it was like Shark Tank, right? So you learn the fundamentals of starting a business, you pitch all of these like investors and folks like that. So kind of was able to kind of build like the storyline, the narrative, that sort of thing. Like, I can kind of like drop the origin story in like 30 seconds, kind of learn that from that. Um, and then one of my mentors in that program, a woman named Katie Dallas, who I always sing her praises because she's just this amazing British woman who saw the value in what I was building, and she linked me up with a man named Tim Jones. He was based out of New York. He was at 72 in sunny New York. Um, he kind of pitched 72 and Sunny on the idea of partnering up with ConCreates. They believed in it, got behind me. Come 2019, after they helped us build our digital identity, our visual identity, those things, launched us into the media. And again, we went what the kids call viral. So from that point, a lot of like podcasts, things like that came our way. And then, this little small record label called Rock Nation came a knocking, and that was kind of like our first client where we worked on one of their artists that was formerly incarcerated, did their marketing, had some pretty huge success with that. And then it just started rolling in. Like people were just like, hey, we want to work with you guys. This is in alignment with our mission. And diversity and inclusion was hot at the time. So when you think about diversity and inclusion, a lot of times people think about just race or gender or sexual orientation, and not realizing like diversity in life experience or diversity in thought process is also a diversity mission.
You guys are hiring and working with and employing people whose backgrounds are either similar or come from very different walks of life. Do I think I read this right. A lot of them actually have criminal records, right? Are they still in and serving time, or are
Yeah,
they out? Like, how do you find these very talented yet, in some cases, disparately located
sure,
people?
sure. So it's a few different ways, right? So one is I was obviously in there, and most people, when you think about prison, you think about the state that you're confined to, right? But the federal system is one system. So even though I might be from California, I could do time in New Hampshire, in Florida, in Virginia, right? And we all kind of travel, right? Because Con Air is a real thing. So you meet people from all different cities, different states, different walks of life. So one of the things that we kind of noticed in prison was there's only two types of people in prison, right? There are the ones that want to be better criminals, right? How do I reverse engineer how I got caught to be better at it when I get out? Or how do I become a better human being, and what could I be doing to better myself? We tend to gravitate towards the ones who want to be better humans. And so we left a lot of men behind, right? And so those men in turn become headhunters, right? They're looking for certain characteristics. And, a part of our business model is I don't just look at like that you can draw, right? Like I look at the fact of your criminal history. So I use the example of like my business partner being a bank robber, right? And to me, he's not a bank robber. He's a strategist, right? I'm not a drug dealer, right? I'm operations. Like, how do you get cocaine from Bolivia to Ohio? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm logistics.
Supply
So
chain, right?
how do I
Someone's
look at
yeah.
right?
It's an interesting. It's your skill set. It's just a matter of what the output and outcome is,
We're
right?
just we're just transferring those skill sets, right? And so tattoo artists became art directors, and rappers became copywriters, and we just teamed up with BBDO. They had this 11-week course that allowed us to shadow our counterparts. We took excellent notes. We built an onboarding package, and so now we're able to kind of educate folks when they get out of prison on whatever their job description could be.
So just one last question on this because I'm fascinated. I've not obviously been in prison and I don't have the personal experience. So how do you connect or like is there you have access to LinkedIn or like what are you using to stay connected with people as you're I mean in some cases actually linked in with people or no longer linked in with people.
Well, part of it is proprietary, right? So I'm not obviously gonna give out my secret sauce so other agencies can compete. I do have a competitive edge, but there's communication systems within prison, right? They can obviously make phone calls, right? You can visit them, right? And they have an email system called Core Links, where we can actually send briefs in via email, and actually get those responses or get those insights from folks sitting in prison who may be deprived. Right? I think what we forget is like these individuals are also your consumers. Right? They consumed your products before they went to prison. They're probably consuming your products while they're in prison, and are definitely going to consume your products when they come home. And so why wouldn't we want that perspective in the way that we communicate?
I the perfect segue to my question for you, which, like, I think about my 13-year-old son. He loves the NBA. He loves fashion. Within that, I look at his Instagram feed, like as he's scrolling through, and it's primarily black people.
Uh-huh.
Like, like no joke. Like he loves hip hop music. He's a white kid in Brooklyn, like whatever. So, like, when I think we had this conversation earlier, and I feel like it's really important to bring up because I think this is a larger issue with like DEI and like sort of getting like typecasted,
Sure.
as you use the word, like into certain things. Like, can you kind of talk about the challenges or sort of like the benefits that have come from having your history, but then also feeling like you're pigeonholed? Like what kind of things do you want to see change within our industry to allow for your business to flourish in the way that you think you should be seeing it
Sure.
flourish?
That's an excellent question, because like you said, we talked about this before, and again, like, it is like a typecast, right? Like, we've had, very, very great successes when it comes to like, Juneteenth and Black History Month, RFPs or briefs, or even things where it's like, hey, we're this, prison company that needs a rebrand, right? Or, even talking to some of the bigger brands that we work with, it's like, hey, when we get the perfect brief, like we'll reach out to you. And a lot of times they think that the perfect brief is something that has to do with blacks or something that has to do with prison. And that's not all we're capable of. Like, just because you see me as a face and I'm black, like, doesn't necessarily mean that our entire network is black, right? We have, like, if you think about prison, it is literally a microcosm of the world, right? It's every age, every race. Prison is not biased to any of these particular demographics. Like the United States of America, they want their time or they want their money, and you're gonna get your ass in this penitentiary. And I don't care what color you are. I don't care what sexual orientation you are. And this is like a funny story, right? So when you go to prison, this is just a segue into the rest of this question or answer. So I'm in prison, right? And like you have to like work or go to school, right? You're gonna work or go to school. Now, me, I'm like, I don't really want to work because fuck, I'm in prison. Like, why would I want to work for you? And so because I hadn't found a job yet when I got to this one prison, they automatically throw you in the kitchen. And so I'm like, hey, I can't work in the kitchen. I got shot in my leg. I can't stand for very long. And the guy doesn't say anything to me, right? He just points to another guy who's in a wheelchair with no legs and he's just rolling a spoon. Like he's putting the napkins around the spoon and fork, right? Like you can work in here because I don't care. Like this is just the point of like, they don't care if you got legs, if you can see, like you're going to prison, right? And so I say that to say everybody's here, right? The disabled, the minority, the LGBT, everybody's in here, right? So I want that to reflect the work that becomes our output and not just what some particular white exec may be thinking our strong suit is.
Please pardon this brief pause as I read some words from our sponsor. Are you a B2B marketer like Matt and Val? Maybe you're tired of playing hide and seek with those sneaky website visitors? It may be a jumble out there, but say goodbye to the struggle and say hello to Leadfeeder. Picture this. You've got the power to spot companies lurking on your website, track their every move in real time, and seamlessly sync it all with your CRM. Leadfeeder isn't just a tool, it's your secret weapon for unleashing the lead-generating beast within. But wait, there's more. Leadfeeder goes beyond the basics, giving you juicy insights into visitor behavior that even the best ad tech analytics mavens would envy. And with customizable notifications, lead scoring, and GDPR compliance, you'll be closing deals faster than you can say SOW and MSA. So, are you ready to kick your lead game up a notch? Head over to leadfeeder.com for your free demo. LEADFEEDER.com. And now, back to the show.
So from a BD perspective, right, as you're out either actively pitching, it's probably less so with inbound opportunities that come in, but I don't know, Paulie, maybe this is for you, but like
It's actually the opposite.
No, yeah.
It's more inbound than it is outbound, right? It's like people reach out to us like, oh, we got this brief about Juneteenth, or hey, Black History Month's coming up, like, let's tap the new guys, you know what I mean? And so it's a lot of inbound work, right? But it's not necessarily
the right kind.
It's not diverse. Well, I'm just saying it's not.
But that and like my point about like my 13-year-old son looking at like primarily like Black related content is like, what is pop culture? What is today's like focus for new audiences? It's not white necessarily, it's not all white at least, so it's just silly. It just frustrates me to think that there's still.
Well, I guess the question, I guess, in my mind that I was getting towards a second ago is, if and when you are out there talking to, meeting with, pitching, what is there like a diversity in the reaction that you're getting to people who, as they learn about your story, like some people are probably open-minded and embrace it. Have you experienced, like, I don't want to call it discrimination, but some sort of negative reaction to just what it is that you bring with you?
So look, let's just keep it all the way transparent. Like, one thing that I didn't expect in this industry is to be embraced the way that we have, right? Like, people are like, wow, this is fucking cool. Like, why didn't we think of this, right? And so that part is, we're there's no shortage of people that's like, hey, I want to work with you guys. Like, that is amazing. Like, the story, like, America loves a fucking underdog, right? Like, that's the truth. We love the movies where the protagonist is somebody who come from humble beginnings and takes over or whatever, right? So that's not where I think we face the discrimination. I think the discrimination is usually, and I hate to use the word systemic because then it makes it sound like it's there on purpose, but like, that's kind of like where our activism kind of kicks in, where it's like, hey, we're being onboarded to this big company who wants to work with us, and then one of the things that's a part of the onboarding package is a background check. And so it's like, we're not going to pass a background check. You know what I mean? Like, we've been very upfront about our criminal history and the band of misfits that we run with. And so those are kind of like the ways, like, sometimes we might be xed out, but then you have those really, really progressive brands that are like, you know what, we're just going to wipe this out of our whole MSA, right? We're going to take this out of our whole policy because you're right. Like, it doesn't make sense. And so we do face it in those particular ways, but again, like, it's more policy driven than it is the individuals who are the ones onboarding you or bringing you into the fold, right? But then I think you get that bias of people who hear the story and then they think it has to be criminal justice related because that's, what we're kind of known for, right? Or it has to be, DE and I or Black minority focused, right? But like I said, like, everyone's represented. We have former veterans. Like, where's the Veterans Day brief? Like, so that's all I'm saying. Is like, the diversity in skill set and life experience is what I think we keep missing as leaders in this space when it comes to dealing with these diverse populations.
I mean, do you think there's a simple solve here? Like, what do you
Yeah,
think?
Ira.
Like, yeah.
Yeah, let us show you what we can do. And so think about this, right? And so we've gotten briefs that no one would imagine, right? So, like, I'm not gonna say the name, but like, this big insurance company is getting ready to unveil this new insurance product, right? And so they come to us and they're like, hey, do you got people who went to prison for insurance fraud? Can you help us fraud proof this new insurance product? Right. And so, yeah, I know a guy that stole 600 million, no guy who did 80 million, no somebody did 30 million. I put a team together of like 15 people to work on this project. And so, but I don't think folks are thinking about this really creatively, right? And so, if we're not sitting down having this conversation of like, hey, we can actually solve bigger problems, like, it's like Catch Me If You Can, like,
I was just gonna say that it's that, think like you use the experience to future proof it.
that's all I'm saying. Stop typecasting us.
There's not a company that's as diverse as ours. That's just a guarantee. There's no way. It's impossible.
Right. And like, everything leads back to like having more diversity allows for different thinking, better, more successful organizations, et cetera, et cetera.
Yep.
And that also plays into your question. That is literally the answer to your question. If it's primarily Black culture, that's considered culture, whether it's fashion, whether it's this and that. But Black isn't the only thing. Like, there's different parts of Black, right? There's, it's just like being able to speak Spanish or Arabic. Like, people from Spain don't speak the same dialect as people from Argentina. You know what I mean? And so it's the same thing with us. Like, we don't have the same vernacular in LA as we have in the South, right? Certain things that we may say mean something different in the South. Just like a Latino male in Los Angeles is not the same as a Latino male in Texas. And so
And
these are the things. And
how many times we've gone back and forth about that, between you and I, or Joe, you and me. You guys say this, what does that mean versus what you say out there? Because Boston obviously has its own vernacular, and like some. Oh
It's
no!
its own
Like
planet.
some of
I
the
mean, let's
phone
be
calls have
honest,
been
right?
crazy. Like, hey, Paulie, what does this mean? Some Italian kid said this to me, and I'm like, yeah, go kick his ass. Like, what I mean? They're like, oh, I thought he was my friend. Like, no, he ain't your
right.
friend, man. That's not your friend.
So you got to realize, like, there's all of these different subcultures within the culture that we have access to. And then, we also have been dubbed your favorite influencer's favorite influencer, right? Like, there's nobody in hip hop culture that we don't have access to, right? Like, you got to remember, like, we're the guys that they rap about, right? Like, we're the guys that influence them, and they're trying to be like us, and they're selling you the image and the lifestyle that we've created or that we've lived. And so, you know,
And as long as, I mean, look, these are people who are professionally earning an income while serving time or incarcerated. Do you see, as part of your overall mission to help reduce recidivism, that providing this meaningful work by creating sources of income, there's actually a tangible impact on the lives of these
absolutely,
creators? Is
sure,
that what you call them? I don't know
absolutely,
what
a
the term
concreator.
is.
And yeah, we have a 0% recidivism rate because, like, we founded this company on a belief system that creativity without opportunity is what leads to criminality. If I would have known I could sell ideas, I would have never sold drugs, right? Like, I didn't realize that this was even an industry or an opportunity, right? So yes, by us providing access to um, this particular world, right, this particular industry, uh, folks don't want to go back to jail or go back to the lifestyle that they led before, because this is a way for them to tell their story, right? This is a way for them to contribute to society, right? This is a way for them to contribute to the economy. So it gives you a sense of pride, even sitting in prison, looking at the television and seeing your idea come to life. Like, that's what the spark was for us. Is like, wait a minute, like, we're all in prison watching an idea that we came up with play out in the real world. The Wall Street Journal, it's all in all of these publications. It was crazy. And so that's where the magic is, right? It's like, wait a minute, like, we can do this.
So so let's talk about currently what's going on with you. So you were recently featured in a trailer for Wayne Brady's latest show.
Uh-huh.
Can you elaborate on how that came to be, and what's your part in this, and where is this going?
By the way, he's like the funniest guy on the planet, just for the record. Like, as a student
Yeah.
of comedy, he is the full.
So Wayne Brady is a great friend of ours, right? And I think I spoke at Columbia Business School, and one of his people, manager, someone was in the audience. He's like, "Wow, this is an amazing, company, this and that." So we hop on a call, kind of just hit it off immediately, and he's like, "Hey, you guys need a TV show." The whole while he's working on his own TV show. So Wayne Brady is obviously the executive producer of our TV show, which is called The Second Chance Act. And Wayne Brady's show, the very first episode, the series premiere, um, is the premise of the show is like, last year he came out as pansexual. And so before he actually came out to the world, he wanted to tell his family and friends that he identified as pansexual. And so throughout the episode, he's kind of like, how do I tell Vincent and Joe this news? And so he kind of sets up this like cookout. We don't know anything, right? We go to his house, taking shots of 1942. Um, you know, and then that was the plug right there for Christina Choi. Um, so he takes us, into his living room, and he tells us like, I identify as pansexual. Now, you have to let me give you some context into what I'm thinking, so you don't just like laugh at like my response. But like, I don't know to be offended. I don't know to be excited, proud of him. Like, my response is like, I don't know what the fuck that is. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
man, has anyone ever come out to you before? Like, is
like
it
in
like an
ever,
event? Yeah, yeah.
I don't know how to respond to it. So my response is, I don't know what the fuck that is. And so my business partner is like, I think it means that he fucks all humans or some shit like that, right?
Hey, look, that's an honest reaction. That's the best you could give, right?
It was the truest thing I could say, because it wasn't like scripted, right? He didn't tell me, "Hey, I'm gonna drop this bombshell on you, and I need you to react this way." I'm just like, I didn't know how to react. You know what I'm saying? And so the only thing is I don't know what the fuck that is. So somehow that made it into the actual trailer that's going around, and it's a meme already.
Oh.
It is.
Yeah.
See, my reaction would have
It
been
is.
like, I guess that gives a whole new meaning to the term Brady Bunch. But, you know.
Oh, you're so clever,
Well, I
Matt.
had time to think about it while he was telling that story. His was honest. Mine was percolating for a few minutes.
Right. It's
Yeah.
premeditated. Yeah, I'm just like, I don't know what the fuck that is. So I don't know how to feel.
So in that, are you part of the show, or
Yes.
like
So
it's more so that now he's,
no,
yeah, go
definitely a
ahead.
part of the show. He talks about ConCreates. He talks about us. I want to say the last half an hour of that show is just us talking to Wayne about. And there's another announcement that I'm not gonna spoil, but like he's gonna make another announcement to us on the show as well.
I
But
said,
yeah,
this is the place to break news, right? This is the place if you wanted to. Our tens of listeners would love it. So when we saw you in Cannes a couple months ago, you had a camera crew with you. Is
that was
this
for our.
related to that? That was for your show. Okay, so tell us where in your superstardom and celebrity orbit this show now is positioned.
So right now it's literally just about us, right? Some of the cool people that we've met in this industry. It's called the Second Chance Act. I'd like to think of it as like a way for people to kind of like not be intimidated by our industry, to see how fucking fun it is. It gives them the ability to kind of like look at their own level of creativity and say, "Oh yeah, I could do this," or and then it also gives a chance to like humanize like these men and women who have been incarcerated, who is, we're fathers, right? We're, like I literally just had to go to New York for a funeral. I met a whole side of my family I never met before, right? And like I'm like a cousin, you know what I'm saying? I'm like the cousin like that they
He's
know
cousin
about, but
Vinny.
right, cousin Vinny. And so to be able to like see those kind of aspects of our lives, like we're not bigger than life. You know what I'm saying? Like even though like people would look at it like, oh, you guys are like these executives, or take away the criminal history part, like you're these executives, or you hang around these celebrities or whatever. Like my oldest brother doesn't give about none of that. Like I'm still his little brother. He gonna tell me to change my clothes. Like you're not coming out looking like that with me. Like you know what I'm saying? Like it's like, that whole thing. It's like, we're just human beings, right? We just have a different lived experience, and you'd probably come to find we have a lot more in common than we do differences.
Again, going back to sort of like a future vision, like the best place you see yourself in the next like 2 years, 5 years, whatever you want to call it. Are there any specific initiatives, focuses that you're looking to expand into? Do you
Well,
feel like this show is going to be like a game changer for you? Like what are you thinking about for ConCreates?
well, I think the show is going to be a game changer for us in a few different ways. Like one, obviously those same brands that maybe we're talking about, who were like, hey, Black History Month's coming up, let's do something, may in turn be like, hey, like there's product placement opportunities, for us to kind of be involved and work together. But then there's the fact that, you know visibly in our industry, like we're pretty famous, right? Like for just existing, you know what I mean? But not to like the world, right? I can still like go to Walmart, you know what I mean? Like people aren't like, hunting.
Taking pictures of
Right, right,
you in the parking
exactly,
lot.
right. And so
Yeah.
I think it's going to change. It's going to be a game changer from that perspective as well. Is like now more folks than just like the executives or the folks in our industry would have access to us and knowing about us. And so I think that, and as far as a future vision, like obviously being in the Warner Brothers universe would give us the ability to not just have this show, but also be able to pump a lot of more creativity that we're kind of just sitting on um, into the world.
Yeah, it's going to give you exposure to other projects, people. I mean, you're traveling the world, you're meeting us and others. I wish I could give you business, maybe at some point soon. Do you guys do? I don't like the term mentorship because it almost
Absolutely.
implies that like it's a one directional experience when those types of things happen. But do you often get sought out for your
Absolutely.
advice or your experience or
100%.
your wisdom? And if so, what's the like most common question that's asked of you, or besides, can you come work with us, right? Which is obviously the dream.
Well, I think if we're talking about from a brand perspective, we do consultant work. Like one of the projects that I'm most proud about is working with a department at Google called Grow with Google, who, we got a brief from them and they were kind of asking us to figure out why during the pandemic a bunch of people took their coursework but weren't getting jobs. And so our insight was like, Google is the problem. And they're like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, we're like, you own YouTube, right? And there's a lot of influencers on YouTube that are saying your certificates aren't allowing, it's not enough, right, for someone to get a job. So it was discouraging people from even applying for a job, right? And so I think they found those insights super helpful. So they kicked us over to this other department that was trying to train formerly incarcerated people on tech skills to get jobs in the tech field. And it was a 2-year program where they wanted to train 100,000 men and women. And we did it in 14 months. We trained 112,000 men and women across the United States.
Wow, that is a pretty impressive stat. Um, Look, you guys are, I think, and you don't need me to tell you this, but you're approaching it the right way. In some ways, the disruption from the status quo, in the same way that everyone's been doing things for the last 50, 100 years, needs fresh ideas. And that's the whole point of creative, of our industry, of why we all get excited about what we do. But thank you guys for sharing this, not only with us, but with our entire industry, with our expanding ecosystem, because it's important that perspectives change and that we're exposed to things that we're not like, this is not a conversation that I would have had on a random day of the week, normally walking through my regular life. So that needs to change, and I'm glad you guys have done that for me personally. So here's what we're gonna do, not to scare you, because I don't think a lot scares you, but we have what we call well, it's very originally named the lightning round. Can you guess what that means? It means we go very quickly with questions. We did not really prepare you for these. Not that you need much preparation, but
You've never been interrogated.
well, you don't know my wife.
Vince, you got crack on the pressure. Turn the light on.
Right.
The good news is, unlike some of those questions, there is no wrong answer to these questions, right?
There's always a wrong
And
answer.
if you do give a wrong answer, there's no punishment that comes along with it. So, is there a hidden talent that you have that people don't necessarily know, expect, or assume exists by either talking to you or knowing you, just on the surface?
100%.
Go ahead, Paulie.
Well, the answer is 100%. Oh, would you like to know what it was?
Yeah,
If I tell you, then it's not hidden anymore. That's the problem, though. It's like a superpower.
Oh,
We're
shit.
here to bring light to the
All right,
darkness. So tell me.
I can read people like you can read a newspaper, like borderline mind reader.
So you're probably thinking, "Oh shit, he's scared that I'm trying to read him right now." Is that what you're thinking? Because that's
I
the
mean,
truth.
because you're not, well, you're not in front of me, but like, I mean, if you like,
Oh, it has to be in real life.
yeah, I mean, videos you can do it too, but like in real life, like I don't know, like I see things that a
energy
normal
don't
human
lie.
doesn't see. I see everything, right down from a handshake, the way you position your hand on a handshake. I know whether you're a dominant person or a fucking beta male. I know if you're trying to like Billy Badass me, just by the way you move, the way you shake a hand, the way I don't know, the way you interact with other people. I know if you're a scumbag or a decent person.
Probably makes you really good at business development, by the way, because in this industry, that's
it does, and that's kind of how it developed. Is because like I said, like I'd go to these events with Vince, and I'd just kind of be like moseying around. He'd be talking to somebody, and like I'd get in a conversation, and nine out of 10 of them, you're like, yeah, nice to meet you, see you later. But then every once in a while, you're like, hey, Vince, like, you've got to meet this guy. Like, I'm texting him, like, you got to get over it. You've got to meet this person or this woman or whatever.
Right.
And actually, that's how me and Vince, like when we first met, how we ended up kind of coming together a little bit, like, closely as far as business was concerned, was the same thing. Like, I met Vince, and inside of, like, I don't know, probably two minutes. Yeah, maybe three, because the first minute was a little sketchy. But so
It
I
was
would
a
say,
little
like, within
sketchy.
3 minutes, like, I was like, no, the company that I was invested in, I was like calling that CEO, and I'm like, you got to meet this guy Vince. Like, I'm like, this is exactly what we need. Like, this is the guy we need to help our business grow. You know what I mean?
And Vince, besides growing an amazing beard, what is your not so hidden talent, maybe?
Um, I write songs. I'm a beautiful songwriter, actually.
Has any of that music ever seen the light of day?
Yeah.
He wrote "Sitting on the Dock of the Bay."
I will have to put our research team on to verify that, but that's why we have a research team. Valerie, you want to go?
Dream client. If you could choose any brand in the world to work with, who would it be and why?
I'm always gonna say the NFL, and not the
Okay.
NFL specifically, but their impact version of Inspire Change is like one of the most prolific endeavors like that I've seen so far since I've been in this space. And like I tell Tim Ellis this all the time, like you create and inspire change. Like that's what I live for, is to inspire change. So
Speaking of unexpected talents, as you get to know and work with people across your network and across this team that you're building, are there any unexpected skills or talents in a con-creator that surprised you or that you were not expecting?
no, I don't know. I guess like when you go to prison, like you're not really surprised by much. You know what I mean? But like, because people can tell you anything, and one thing, like even just Paulie, like Paulie can cook his ass off. Like Paulie's like a really good chef. Like, and me too though. Like I could cook my ass off, and it's like because I
You
learned
just
how.
didn't want to do it in prison, right? That was it. You just didn't want to have to do it for other people. So you ended up doing it.
Yeah.
Okay. I thought you just shunned that job and went to school and got more of
No,
the.
I want to cook the stuff I want to cook. I don't want to cook that.
Okay. Well, that's fair.
So, what is the most ridiculous idea you've ever pitched to a client?
Oh, definitely know what that is. So Trojan. So Trojan wants to do a Black History Month thing. And so they give us this fucking crazy ass brief that's like, Black people are the most miseducated in sex education in the United States. And so we're like, that doesn't sound right, right? So, we get to doing our research. Come to find out, old people got more STDs than young people, right? And so we're like, I don't think it's a Black thing. I think it's a societal thing, right? Because old people are probably like oh, I can't get pregnant. You know what I mean? So they're not even wearing condoms for the right reason. So, obviously, like this is a societal thing. Then we dig in some more and we kind of find out that like 13 states in the United States are not required to give you accurate medical information when it comes to sex education. So that kind of confirms like this is a societal thing. And so,
by the way, should we guess which states? Should we do that game or probably not? Maybe not for this podcast.
Yeah. This isn't a smear campaign. I'm just giving context in the way that we solve the problem. And so obviously, like when you think about a condom, right? What do you do with a condom? You fuck with it. And so we're kind of like, okay, so how do we play with the word fuck? And so there's like 147 different ways to use the word fuck. So we're like, damn, so when did it become cool to not give a fuck? So we found from like the mid 90s all the way until now, it's been this common thing, right? There's been books written about it. The Subtle Art of Not Giving a Fuck. I think Kevin Hart had a special called Zero Fucks Given. And so we're like, but that doesn't really make sense, right? Because people say that they don't give a fuck, but really they do, right? Gen Z, millennial folks, they actually give a fuck about what a brand stands for. And so the idea that we had pitched Trojan was the campaign wrapper was called Trojan Gives a Fuck. And this was to become their kind of like philanthropy arm. This is, we give a fuck about Breast Cancer Awareness Month. And this is what we're doing to show you. It was fucking great.
Well, I don't think that's outlandish or ridiculous. I actually think that's brilliant. And if they didn't go for it, I think you could probably then go pitch someone else because they don't own that idea, right?
Well,
you own that idea.
But I also think like it was like custom. Like, where are we gonna go and get that? Oh, we don't give a fuck. We give a fuck. You know what I'm saying? It's not really gonna fit any, because when you hear Trojan, and look, like the way we did it was the Trojan logo where the CK was. Like it was like design wise, it was just perfect. It was just like a thing,
I'm glad that you guys do give a fuck, because I think, as I said earlier, what you're doing is important, but also just professionally, like selfishly, I love that we're changing the narrative of where a crusty old, and that's maybe ageist of me, but a crusty old industry has been trying to break free from. So keep doing what you're doing. If any of our listeners are interested, how can they find you? Where can they find you? How can they reach out?
Sure. So everything is ConCreates across the board, but it's spelled CONCRE, the number 8 TES on social media, whether that's Instagram, or you can spell it out completely and it'll still pop up, ConCreates. And then, you can email us at info@ConCreates.
I love it. I'm so excited for the show. When are you finishing filming?
It's Hollywood, so it's unpredictable.
Yeah.
And you think it's going to be 6 months, and then it's just like advertising.
I was going to say, it's just like prison.
Right. It's supposed to be 7 weeks, and then it's like 7 months. So it really just depends.
Okay.
But be on the lookout for it, guys. It's coming.
All right.
I love it. I can't wait.
Look, I love you, Valerie. Appreciate you guys having us on here. I don't know. Anything Valerie asked me for, she can have. Only thing I'm not going to do is go back to prison. So
I'm not going to ask that of you, please. I like you here.
Yeah.
I like you here in the free world.
Thank you, guys.
All right.
Appreciate you.
And that's a wrap on this episode with ConCreates. Thanks to Vincent and Paulie. Thanks to all of our supporters and listeners. And thank you to our sponsor, Lead Feeder. And don't forget to check out all of our previous episodes of the Snarketing Podcast.